Okay, I want to get to this sticking point in a minute. But first, a government shutdown, perhaps one that could be very short. Uh, Not a done deal, but Republican-led House of Representatives aren't going to be back in session until at least Monday. And the government is going to run out of money sometime on Saturday. So hopefully the shutdown won't be as long or as punishing as the one a few months ago. But tell us how we got here, what you think is going to happen, and how is it going to affect the U.S. government over the weekend?
Well, we got here through a long, arduous path that not a lot of people have talked about in the recent days since the shooting of two American citizens. But we got here because there was a scandal in Minneapolis surrounding a group of Somali immigrants who were manipulating some funds that were passed over during the pandemic that were supposed to go to feed hungry children, but instead they arranged a swindle. Even though that case had been investigated and many people had been charged and arrested and some even convicted, a conservative blogger kind of caught wind of it and presented it as news on a lot of social media. That in turn led President Trump to go on a screed talking about Somali immigrants and how Minneapolis has one of the largest Somali American communities in the country. And therefore, he sent ICE to try to clamp down and send a message to that city, that Democratic leaning city, that he was not going to tolerate any of these allegations. And in fact, even though the investigation was already underway and there had been some political fallout, President Trump decided to flex. Now, part of that flex involved sending thousands of agents into the streets and just arresting people on site without any kind of reason or rhyme or reason. And that led to some confrontations because the city pushed back. And that led to the further confrontations between Renee Good and Alex Preddy, both of whom were shot without provocation, it seemed, by ICE agents.
Yeah, okay. Now, fast forward now, the U.S. Senate has apparently reached that deal with the White House, and President Trump using the term bipartisanship and talking about this. It would be great if it was truly bipartisan. Is that indeed the case? But there are still a lot of barriers out there. This is not a done deal.
That's absolutely right. As a matter of fact, this is more kicking the can down the road. They've set a 2-week clock on whether or not they can make or agree on whether or not Trump and the Democrats can agree on enough reforms to get ICE to kind of relax and not be as aggressive. But that's something that's going to be a tough sell for Trump, who has very much been on the side of having troops go in with maximum force and with maximum aggression to try to not only gather up law-breaking immigrants who are here in the country illegally, but also to, again, send a message to the city, because this is not happening in any other cities except Minneapolis, and it didn't happen in Minneapolis except it drew the president's attention. So he really is sending a lot of mixed messages here. On the one hand, people are saying he's pivoted and is taking a more measured approach to Minneapolis. On the other hand, if you read his social media feed, it's doing anything but.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that because what the Democrats want and the White House is agreeing to is a separate funding measure from ICE, as opposed to just lumping it in to the whole federal budget, and also putting restrictions, no longer allowing these ICE agents to wear masks, and also reduce their heavy-handed tactics. Are you surprised, though, that Republicans are agreeing to talk about ICE funding, given what you just said about the way Trump has basically given a mandate for ICE to go into Minneapolis and other cities the way they have?
I'm surprised and not surprised. I'm surprised in the fact that they've backed Trump on virtually everything that he's wanted to do, including these strikes in the middle of the Caribbean that have killed dozens of people that are merely suspected of trafficking drugs to the United States. But the optics in Minneapolis are really hard to deny for the Republican Party. They've got a lot of people upset across the country. Polling against ICE is 3-4 to 1 against ICE and how they're handling these tactics. And it's taken a winning issue for President Trump and turned it into a loser in the same year that Republicans are going to have to face voters in the midterm elections. Now, parties typically lose the House when the party in power is in the Oval Office, but in this case, it's starting to measure up to being a wipeout if things aren't done to reverse things right away.
So what does this mean for the immigration crackdown, and also separately DHS and its operations going forward?
Again, mixed messages here. DHS, as you might remember, got a big, massive bucket of money in that one big, beautiful bill. So they're already sitting pretty. The supplemental funding is for body cameras, and it does not mandate that those body cameras have to be purchased and worn. Thirdly, again, you're getting mixed messages from the White House. You're getting the governor of Minneapolis saying, well, he doesn't really trust Trump, but he's going to try to work with him. But you've got people on the street who are still seeing no visible difference in how ICE is conducting themselves. You have Tom Homan, the architect of the family separation policy, sent in as a supposedly moderating voice,
Right.
but he too is saying that he's going to keep his foot on the gas and only make marginal adjustments around the edges. You have Alex Preddy. His death is being investigated by the Civil Rights Division of the FBI, but Renee Good's death is not being investigated at all. She's still being classified by Washington and the powers that be in Washington and the Republican side as a domestic terrorist. So it's all over the map, and only time will tell if we can really get something done and tamp down the rhetoric and tamp down the aggression in one of these cities that really has not had that much of an immigration problem if you look at it in the whole.